Okay, we are on air now. So welcome everybody to the Authentic Being Show. Today I have a lovely guest here. It's Anne Ross. Hello, Anne. Lovely to connect with you. We have actually connected over a comment on Facebook, which was about creating a business from the inside out. I don't remember exactly what I said there, but it sparked enough interest to initiate this connection so we can explore further about and share our experiences with starting and creating a business this way, which we are both just experiencing and exploring in our own lives, me as well as Anne. So I will say a little bit of my views and my experience to start off. I was a person who had a lot of ideas and who was very clear about what she wants to create in the world business-wise, but I didn't feel the trust that I can do it on my own, that I can just move into it and be guided by my own feelings and how I want to do it. So I felt very needy of support, which I sought, and I received some advice, expert advice, and it didn't sit right with me. There is the usual advice out there, like you have to create a business plan, you have to do it this way, you have to do your market research, and unless you do it the prescribed, proper, right way, you are no good as a budding entrepreneur. And it just really felt like, first of all, I wasn't getting the support for my own being, for who I am and what I want to create. And second, it felt like it's crushing my infinite potential by trying to put me on a track all entrepreneurs or creative people should be on, that there was a prescribed way of doing things. And this has held me back even further, because I was refused the support I thought back then I needed, the professional advice. And that had further effect on how I felt about myself and on my confidence. And then I started getting more into the three principles, and I discovered people who were maybe business coaches or business advisors who also discovered the three principles, and suddenly there was a different approach, that suddenly it was acceptable to just go a different way, your own way. Suddenly there wasn't just one correct advice, but the possibilities for creating a business as an individual started to expand, which I like. But for me, it was but a confirmation of my feeling that I always had, that if you want to create an authentic business that will reflect who you are, you have to, not have to, but that it's okay to go with your feeling and to create it from within yourself, following your inner guidance. So it was a journey where I was learning to trust this guidance, and eventually I got to a point where, after a long time of procrastination, I started actually creating something. And all it took for me to start working on this was letting go of all these expert ideas, then letting go of maybe even more of my own ideas, how I thought things should happen. And from that point on, things just started coming together on its own. And I would even go as far as saying that I created a whole website and connected with a lot of people and recorded interviews and did a lot of work sort of behind my own back. Because the part of me that comments on everything and that normally talks me out of doing things, the part I sort of sneaked away from that part, and I didn't pay any attention to it, and I was just doing my own thing without thinking about if it's any good, what will people think about it. I was just letting what was naturally there within me. I just let it come out as it was, without the self-criticizing of whether it's perfect or good enough or what I want to achieve with it, and that was the whole trick to it for me. And so far it's working. I don't know, I haven't made any money yet, but I've come very far with this approach, and I got somewhere that I was never able to get to by seeking external advice. To me and to my free spirit, that was always, it never felt right. It felt crushing to my infinite potential. So this is where I am at, and I've seen other people who are trying to create a 3P business, and they are struggling with it because they're often seeking outside of themselves. They are seeking who they should serve out there. For me, it was just looking inside and seeing who I want to serve, who I want to work with, and just describing that. And just one more thing I want to add. For a long time, I was stuck on trying to figure out how to bring the 3 principles into, or I wanted to create a 3 principles based business, but I had plenty of ideas of what that looks like based on what other people were doing with the 3 principles. And then I knew that there is some business that wants to come together within me that's about something else, because I'm involved with something that I'm going to call soulcraft sessions, which are very much based on following your soul's path. And I just couldn't figure out for a long time how to bring those 2 things together. I was afraid that the people in the 3 principles community will judge me if I talk about something that's not very common or usual. And so long as I was trying to figure it out, it was impossible to figure it out. Yeah. But at some point I've dropped that, and I just went with my primary feeling for what I want to create without thinking about the 3 principles business. And from that moment on, it became really clear that the 3 principles will come in, merge with it naturally. I didn't have to figure anything out how to merge it. It just, once I went with what was truly innately within me and created from there, from that place, there was nothing to figure out anymore. It just comes together. It just was a matter of being true to myself, of being brave enough to be true to what's really there and not being afraid to express that. That was it.
And that's so beautiful because it sounds easy.
It was fun even. Still, a little bit challenging for me, but surprisingly easy compared to how hard it could be if you were to determine where you want to get there and figuring out how to get there. It wasn't work as such.
That's beautiful because, you know, millionaires are made all over the world, aren't they? By following a plan, a business plan, having strategies, putting the right people in the right places. And it does work for a lot of people like that. But in my experience, it was really, really hard work and such a struggle. And I was successful doing that, but it led to exhaustion. It led to burnout because I was constantly struggling all the time, you know, to be the best, to be at the head of the game. And that driving force, that belief that I had to work really, really hard all the time to achieve what I want. And actually, Romana, I can say that I was successful and I had a successful practice, but it cost me. It cost me. And the cost, when I look back on it now, it wasn't worth the cost.
Yeah, that's the sense I always got from this. It just never felt right to me. It should be fun because you are living this life for yourself. If you're not experiencing fun, what's the point? Like,
yes. Well, and you know, because I'm a bit older, I came from the old school where in my family you had to work really, really hard to make a living. And there was also like a family belief that, oh, you know what, she's not very bright, but she works really, really hard. So as if hard work was honorable. And if you were not working hard, in some strange way, there was a judgment that you were getting your money by false pretenses and that it wasn't honorable. So that was behind my drive to be the best in the world, really, was to work hard for everything that I received. And I could do that, and I could help many, many other people to do that too. But it just wasn't worth the cost. So what drew me to your Facebook comment was because the last year or so, because I burned out, I've been looking at engaging in life in a different way through the point of view of the three principles. And so I've been looking more within. You know, the ancient wisdom sages have been saying for thousands of years, look within. And I've been one of those people that have said, yeah. No. But where is that? Like, where's within? And so I knew it on an intellectual level, but it was only upon learning the principles more deeply that I realized that it was that to stop seeking anything on the outside of me, because as soon as I did that, I was going into a different, an old paradigm, which I didn't want to engage in anymore. So it was absolutely pointless to engage in it. So I completely stopped it and watched my thinking. Am I going outside or am I within? And that was my benchmark, if you like, was, am I wanting something on the outside of me? And if that was true, then I knew that it wasn't congruent, it wasn't authentic for me. So I began to look more and more to what is that within me that wants to be born? And I may have gone down the route, what am I passionate about? What do I love? And I actually did have a marketing session, and it was the old marketing question. What is it that you're passionate about? Who is it that you really want to work with? And I was a person who said, oh, everybody. You know, anybody who thinks is what I was saying. So there was a sort of gentle slap on the wrist, and I was told, but you must be more specific. You must be more specific about your market. Well, after having had a practice for 15 years where I was never specific, except for the last 7 years where I became a specialist in trauma work, but prior to that, I was what I would call a generalist. And so that means that I could work with an out-of-work clown, or I could work with the Brigadier General. Because it didn't matter to me. Once I understood that all human beings work the same way, then there was nobody that I felt terribly passionate about working with, because my understanding is that we're all the same. So why does it matter? Why is it so terribly important to find what I'm passionate about? So that was helpful in my old reality. But when I let go, for me, the turning point was when I let go of recreating a business, when I realized that actually I don't want a business anymore. I fell back into that place within me that knew that the more that I trusted life, the more that I trusted my own evidence, the more I could lean back into life and be held. And I'm held by an unseen, invisible force which I can't explain, and it's a mystery to me. And that's beautiful, because I was a person who had to know everything all the time. So with my expert's hat on, it was crucial that I knew. So this freshness, this newness of not knowing is a delight to me, because it's free, it's easy. And I can rest in this beautiful feeling of not knowing. And out of that not knowingness comes that fresh thought, that fresh idea. And suddenly, from running one meetup a month, where the room has become too small now, I've been asked to run another meetup in the evening for working people, because my first meetup was about people who were unemployed, people who couldn't afford, and the room got too small. And starting off with 3 or 4 people in January, there are now 40 people on that meetup. Now, I didn't lift a finger except just to say, hello, I'm going to be here at a certain time in this room. Come and have a cup of tea. I would create a little piece about what was interesting me in that moment, what I was reflecting on in that moment. Now there are 40 people, and the second meetup has been born, again with no effort whatsoever. So out of that, just without thinking at all, and that sounds really strange, with very little thought, I just started doing 3 principles courses every month. And I just showed up. And I said, every month I'm going to be running these. Here's a little heading. This is a little title. Love to see you. And if that doesn't draw you, that's okay. And so sometimes I have 5 or 6 people. Sometimes I have 10 or 12. But what's different for me is I'm not attached to that anymore. It's not important to me how many people are there. What's important to me is that I can point people to their own well-being, and I can point people to the love that they are. And and I can point people to sharing this in their own inimitable way with other people if they want to. So again, it's free, it's easy, it's very loving. And I have a great mix of people from, housewives to consultant psychiatrists to consultant psychologists to GPs to coaches and therapists. It's really, really a mixed bunch. But that again just gives me evidence that I don't have to choose a particular segment of the public to work with. That in its own way, wisdom is showing up in me, and as long as I'm present, as long as I'm there, something unfolds, which I don't have to understand, and I don't have to plan. Now that's delicious.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just like to highlight that the prerequisite to not having to plan this or to pick your audience or who you want to work with is that you show up with what is within you.
Yeah.
So maybe for somebody it excuse me, maybe for somebody it is working with lots of different kinds of people. For somebody else it can turn up to be a very specific niche. But so long as it comes from within, from the place of stillness, we will all get exactly the audience or the clientele that we are supposed to work with. But there doesn't have to be us trying to figure it out, because oftentimes what I've seen is that people are advised to figure out what niche they want to work with.
Yeah.
And so they look within with whom they would like to work with, and they get an idea and they think, oh, this sounds right, and straight away they jump outside of themselves and go looking for those people outside of themselves, creating the imaginary audience. And what I mean by that is they try to figure out intellectually where they are, what do they look like, who are they, instead of just staying connected to the place within and let it emerge naturally from there, and see who shows up, what turns up.
Yeah. I love the way you say that, because I was talking about that to somebody else the other day, and she immediately said to me, oh, but that takes courage.
Yes.
Yes, it does on one level. Having said all of that, what I also know is that if I'm in a good feeling, if I'm experiencing stillness, as you say, or that formlessness, that formless nature behind life, which is what we really are, then formlessness has to take form. It has to take form. And if I can get out of my own thinking about it, then the waters are not muddy. It's much more clear. And something fresh is born, and or called forth, if you like, without me having to do too much about it. So the client said, yes, but that takes courage. And it does to a level, but the more evidence that I can collate about how this works, because as you know, Romana, there's no roadmap for this new work. We can't prescribe. This is not a prescription for how it works. It's a description of that power behind life that we can lean into. And the more we can collate evidence about that, the more form has to be born out of the formlessness in our experience. Now, the more that I can see how that works, the more I'm going to trust that, the more I'm going to lean into life until there are times now when I feel held by that innate intelligence behind life. That helps a sense of non-attachment. And then it's almost as if I'm living in two worlds. I'm living a world where I'm experiencing a beautiful feeling, and experiences come and go. Now, in the old paradigm of reality, I might have labeled those experiences good, bad, right, wrong. But now I'm noticing that when I'm in a beautiful feeling, those what I would have called negative beliefs that would have created procrastination, negative beliefs that would have said I wasn't good enough, negative beliefs that said it wasn't possible for me to do certain things, I'm not so much seeing them as good and bad, and I'm not labeling them so specifically. So what I'm noticing now, it's living in two worlds where when I'm in that beautiful feeling, I have the experience. And I'm reminded of that beautiful Rumi poem that says, out beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. Meet me there. And I love clients who have the courage to meet me there.
Mm.
Because that's that place of infinite potential that you intuitively knew about, that every human being knows about.
Yeah, but it can be a challenge for some to let it go.
Absolutely. And maybe there's something about not having to let it go. Maybe there's something about being so grounded in the principles or having so much evidence of how it works that actually it lets go of us. Because when love is present, there isn't room for low quality thinking. So I used to think, oh, I have to let go of this, but actually I realized that it was kind of a doing. So I would be trying really, really hard to let go when I couldn't, when that was too difficult for me, because there may have been a time when it wasn't safe. It didn't feel safe. So I would keep telling myself intellectually to let go, whilst energetically holding on really tight. And I still do that, you know. I'm still going to forget, and I'm still going to do that. But that's okay too. And I'm okay when that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. Would you like to say a little bit more about some discoveries you made about your new approach to setting up your new practice? Or
Yes, I haven't really spoken about it a lot, but I think the most important thing, which is what your Facebook comments really spoke to my heart. And I had been doing it intuitively, but you put it into words, and that was stop looking on the outside. Stop looking on the outside for experts who can tell you how to do it, because they can only explain to you with the best of intentions their own thinking. You know, their 7 steps to marketing, their 7 steps to a $6 million turnover. And it's with the best intentions, and love is behind it. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And there's the thing about the more that I fall in to myself and trust that. And Dickon Bettinger talks about, he says it so beautifully, he talks about falling out of my intellect and standing underneath it, which he means understanding. So that's falling out of my intellect and standing underneath it. And that it describes to me beautifully the process. So again, it's not a prescription, it's not a doing. But once we see that at a different level, because as you know, Sydney Banks says, we see, then we see, we hear, and then we hear. And when I heard that at a different level, it just started to happen all on its own. So this is the one thing in my entire life where I can honestly say that the paradox is the less I do, the more I receive. The less I do, the more is given. In ways that are startling, in ways that are never-endingly surprising. So how do I know it works? Because there's a feeling attached to it. And that feeling is, oh, it's not, oh my God, I've got to do this now. Now I've got to write a newsletter. And now I've got to... So I'm not in my to-do list. There's a lightness of being to it. There's a surprise. There's a little gasp. There's a oh, attached to it. And that's when I know I'm on track. And that's how I differentiate. You know, am I in a good feeling or am I in my thinking? And that's how I tell. Is it light? Is it heavy? Because I know when I've got heavy thinking or poor quality of thinking, I've got low energy. And that might not be the best time to make decisions, to have conversations, to move forward. That might be the place for me to get really quiet, get still, out of which newness and freshness. And as Sydney Banks says, you're only one thought away from everything you ever wanted.
And at the same time, I would like to add that there is nothing wrong to read something from an expert, but if
Yes.
you're coming to them from a place where you know that the most important and primary guidance is your feeling and how you feel internally, that you will be okay no matter what, that you will find your own way, then you're not coming to them from a place of neediness. You're not trying to understand or get something, but you're coming with an openness and with the groundedness in yourself, where you can take what will best serve you or pick what will most suit your interest without having the prejudice of neediness of, oh, this is how it's done, so this is how I have to take it and apply it. No, you are open to insight, and you can read somebody else's advice, but you will be inspired to make it your own. You don't have to follow somebody else's wisdom. You can still stay grounded in yourself. So yeah, that's just what I want.
Yeah, and so there's no wrong or right about it.
No.
It's just following the feeling for me. And you know, Romana, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It would be interesting to have this conversation in another 6 months or in another year's time to see what's unfolded, because the truth is I don't know. And that can be really scary. But yet there's something, and this is what I would call the mystery. There's something I know, but I don't know it intellectually.
Yes, and to this I would like to say that I'm one of those people that were born with the sense that I am meant to do something important. And I always had this sense of mission or something. Some people are like that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't always entirely clear of what it will be, and it was just becoming more and more clear to me throughout my life until eventually it became very clear, and that was like, yeah, I would have to use some swear words to describe how I felt when I discovered what exactly it will be. And then I had to let go of that later on to really let emerge, to really get out of the way and let emerge what wants to emerge. But where I'm going with this is, yeah, I lost the thread, I think. I was probably going somewhere like I had this sense, this innate sense, but it was only the more I was able to get out of the way, the more it had the chance to emerge and be created through me. And even though at one point I was really shown through, and you could call it insight, what it is and what it will be and what it will look like in the future. Even then, I still, so the sense is almost palpable what it is, but it hasn't taken form yet. So even though I could describe almost what shape, what color it is, what does it smell like, what does it taste like, what does it look like. So there is like a firm grasp of the sense, but it cannot be described in words very well, because then I would give it a form before it has naturally taken a form. So there is on one hand the strong inner knowing what's in there, what wants to be created, and on the other hand, you holding it with a loose fist, as they say. You are. It's something bigger than what you can conceive in your being, in your intellect. It's something that's evolving. It's emerging from moment to moment. It's being created, and it changes depending on how circumstances might change. It's always evolving and unfolding, like life is unfolding. So there can be this strong connection and knowing, and at the same time there is this immense openness and spaciousness that holds it all. Yeah.
So I mean, what we're really talking about, in my mind, is it just occurs to me that we are talking about a new paradigm in marketing. Not
in
only
everything.
not only a new paradigm in psychology, psychiatry, the way that life works, but in marketing and in everything.
Everything.
So there is no roadmap.
No.
So it just occurs to me in this moment that somebody listening into this, how could we ground this into everyday practice? Not practice is the wrong word, but how could we ground this for people who might be listening, who may be thinking this conversation's quite, like out there, and whatever else they might be thinking?
I don't know. I'd let them think what they want to think. Like,
yeah.
For me, it really breaks down to what you want your life to be, and I don't mean on the outside. I mean what feeling you want to have from your life, and then ask yourself, are you experiencing that feeling, or are you not? And then let yourself be guided by whether you are having a light feeling or whatever feeling you want to have, or whether you are doing something external in order to get a feeling or avoid a feeling.
Yeah.
And it's quite simple. From moment to moment, you can just go with what feels right. Don't go against yourself, like, ever.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, because I absolutely agree with you, But my question would be, and it was, because this did happen to me, wow, I'm in this beautiful feeling, and I'm watching my bank balance go down. So then the question is, do I stay in this beautiful feeling and just keep watching my bank balance go down? At what stage do I then think, uh-oh, alarm bells? Because in my world, it's to keep it practical as well. Because this wisdom is common sense too. It's grounded in common sense. So at what level am I allowing my bank balance to go down because I'm in a good feeling, and I don't feel like working today, or I don't feel like connecting with clients today because I'm honoring how I feel, I'm being authentic. Where's the practical?
I would say if you're following your wisdom, then you're going to be always taken care of. But when you are not wanting to see a client because you're not feeling like that, because you would rather lounge, my guess is that there's some thinking getting in the way of the common sense, really, that some thinking that's going unnoticed. And same with the bank balance, like you might be believing that you are in a good feeling, whereas what's actually happening, you're avoiding or bypassing what's actually there. So, and I think a lot of people, whether in the spiritual circles or even in the three principles, like this can happen to them, that they're in a good feeling, but they're still actually stuck in a judgment that the good feeling means feeling happy, or and that feeling sad is a bad feeling. And when I say good feeling, what I mean is beyond this duality. It's the innate okayness, where you don't judge whether you are joyous and jumping about and laughing, or whether you're just feeling a bit low. It's being okay with both.
Yes, because I asked the question because it's been asked of me as well, and my experience was that I experienced all of that. So there were some days that I was in a beautiful feeling, and I would see my bank balance go down, and I would have no reaction whatsoever. I didn't care. And that could go on for some periods of time. And then one morning I would look at my bank balance and think, oh, got to do something. That was when I fell out of that feeling. And either way is okay, but I think it's important that people know that whatever it is that happens, they are safe, and there is common sense attached to this as well.
Mm.
Because I have experienced days of, wow, look at my bank balance, and I'm not even worried about it. Oh, and then, oh, look at my bank balance. I have to get my skates on. And it's drawn into that duality, out of home, if you like, and yet still feeling safe in the background.
Hmm.
So I know if I experience that, other people are going to experience that too. But I think, Romana, that's the time when I would most like to have had support, for somebody to say, you know what, that really is my experience, and it's okay. Just that little bit of reassurance. That would mean that I was going outside, but I think sometimes that's needed, sometimes that's required, just to make sure, because we're in unknown territory. So I think from time to time, it's really good to have a bit of reassurance.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it that this will be way out there, that there isn't
Cool.
any outside, that the
Yes.
difference is how you're looking or how you're thinking about it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
whatever you do, it's all
Yes.
inside out.
Yes. Yes. And I would be a person that would like that. I would be a person not being needy, but being a person who wanted to be supported during that. And albeit briefly, and feeling connected with somebody that had had that experience,
Mm.
albeit briefly. Um, because I don't want to exclude the outside 100% yet. I'm not ready for that.
And it's probably not going to happen that soon because we are always
Yes.
going to come in and out of it, and we can
Yes.
play the game like, and but
Yes.
knowing it's okay, it's what makes
Yes.
all the difference.
Yes. Yes.
And that we can sometimes believe that it's the outside world happening to us.
Yes. Yeah.
It
But
wouldn't
I
be
don't,
any fun.
in my world, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for support, as long
Uh,
as it's not dependency.
I think support is a beautiful thing. My experience with that was such that when I was looking for it from a place of need or lack, I wasn't able
Yes.
to get it, no matter where I looked. But when I
Yeah.
found the or resolve in myself to somehow provide that for myself internally, then it would show up externally as well.
Yes.
So it's a
Yes, and
tricky
that's
one.
my experience as well. But it's not my experience 100% yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we are all just playing and learning and seeing how it
Exactly.
works.
Yes.
It's a
Exactly.
mystery. It's a big mystery.
It is.
Would you like to move on to what are you exploring now in regards of healing work with the three principles? And
Hmm.
maybe say a little bit about your background in there.
Yes. So I was an EFT Founding Master. So at the leading edge of energy psychology. And I spent the last 7 years specializing in trauma. And it was beautiful for me to see how a client could release long held trauma in their physical body. And whilst I love the three principles, I can see the effects in trauma with the three principles, because as you know, the physiology reacts so beautifully as the mind is more understood and life is understood on a deeper level. The way it works is understood. I've become very interested in the way a person's self-healing can be activated through various acupressure points or acupuncture points, where the energy can be moved through the amygdala, which is what holds all our negative thinking, negative beliefs, fears, worries. It's the reptilian brain, isn't it? How the energy of somebody's own self-healing can move through that and begin a clearing process with a side-by-side understanding of the principles. So I don't know enough about it yet, and I'm not really a body worker, but because of my previous career, I'm really interested in the integration of the two. And I think it's important not to leave the body out.
I agree.
My intuition just says that we can't not acknowledge the body's role in our lives. But like I said earlier, I'm just exploring it now. And again, I don't know where it's going. It's just that I got really interested in it because I was interested in the science of the energy psychology anyway, and the plasticity of the brain and neural pathways in the brain. I never ever did NLP, but I have been hooked up to a brainwave machine where doing EFT on a stage with my brain waves and a client's brain waves, and you could, they were both on a screen, and you could see how, as the work began, the brain waves became what I would call entrained. So you could see both brain waves spiking on a screen. So maybe I would be a little nervous or something like that, and my brain waves would be spiking, and my client's brain waves would be spiking. But then about 10, 15 minutes into the session, it was beautiful to see the brain waves quiet down and then eventually almost be the same. So that was really interesting to me. So I don't understand it. So to really talk about it, I would be in the realm of concepts and ideas because I don't have any specific evidence. But all I can say is what I saw. And that's two people's brainwaves spiking. And then as both quieten down, as the mind quietens down, the brainwave patterns become in some way the same or similar. So I guess that's really exciting in my world, and I'm going to continue exploring that and just see where it takes me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know that much about EFT. I've tried it on a couple of times and I didn't persevere with it too much. But do I understand it that the acupressure points are what is being used in EFT?
Yes.
Okay, so
so this is not EFT, this is something different.
Okay. But I believe all the techniques have the same sort of core. How it's based on a principle of how things actually work, and then we develop different techniques and practices of how to affect the workings or how to work in resonance with it, or
yes.
So this is moving energy through influencing some points on the body.
Yes.
Sort of getting the healing energy to move, and
yes. But what's beautiful about it is that the client's own healing energy is activated. So this energy is not coming from anywhere else. And in my mind, that's what makes it different.
Yes. Would you like to hear a little bit about what my conclusions or findings are?
I would love to hear about that.
I have been on a path of really simplifying things, especially when it comes to healing or well-being, and I've been going in the direction with body work even before with a direction that was very much three principles, informed by the three principles, even before I know about them, and this has been sort of an intuition that has been operating in many areas of my life, that always just go where it is the simplest and where it makes most sense, and so I've been also exploring how the way three principles are usually facilitated by a conversation, how this could be just taken and brought into bodywork setting. And it's interesting you should speak about the brain waves, because in my experience, what's happening during a three principles consultation is that we have the facilitator and we have the client, and they both have this healthy core within them, but only one remembers, and he doesn't help the client to remember, but just by being present with what he knows within himself. And this is a theory that I really like, so I will share it. And energy field is created.
Indeed.
And by that resonance, the remembering is facilitated from within that client. And the same thing actually can happen with body work, when there is space being held for the client in whichever way. It might be supported by touch on specific points, or by an embrace, or just conscious touch, or it can be anything really. Whatever is needed in the moment, in my opinion, is best. Not really trying to make it into a particular technique, but to use what is most needed or wanted in that moment. And then again, a resonance happens when there is conscious presence, and then it can come to the surface within the client as well, and he then remembers how the self-healing energy can work in him, and learn to hold that space for himself, which is exactly what happens with the three principles. And it can be not taught, but supported in remembering in a bodywork setting as well, so that the client can then bring it with themselves into their daily life, and they can hold space for themselves, whether it's for their head space or space in the mind, or whether it's in the body. Like, to me, it's the same thing. It's just, it can be approached from different ends, talking or physical touch. And but the most important secret, in my understanding, is for healing, for connecting with one's inner authentic well-being, is relaxation, which is what is being facilitated in healing sessions, again through different techniques. But in my experience, the less the techniques and the more just authentic presence with one another, the more interesting for me, the more natural it is, the less effort, and the more it's being supported, the infinity of possibilities of what is there to emerge, and to be present with that. So I think this is sort of in brief what my findings are, and what I am now exploring myself. And I'm planning. I don't have much actual practical experience with this, besides from being on the receiving end, or just talking about this with people. So I haven't moved into professional practice yet, because this is something that nobody is really doing so far. Or they give it some name. They don't really give go their own way. That would be truly just showing up with as you are, and then getting out of the way, so to speak. So that's what I want to do myself. And
I think what I love about that is the knowing and the understanding that everybody already has it within. And at some level, it's activated, or at some level, It simply begins without us having to understand anything.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's interesting to me about healing. Like there are a lot of theories in the energy work world about how it works, but the truth is nobody knows. Nobody knows how healing happens because there are so many levels and subtle levels. Where a disturbance can happen, and eventually it will reach our core, our where we come from. So to claim to understand, uh, and again, it's activated from within the particular soul. So only the soul decides when it's the right time and how it's going to happen. So healing, I can do intuitively what I can do or what occurs to me in the moment, but how it actually happens, I can have ideas about that, but I'm not going to claim that I know how it happens.
Exactly.
And then again, that's another reason why I believe that it's beneficial to have an unconditioned mind when you're showing up for healing work sessions, not having agendas, not thinking that you know what you're doing, because the less thinking you have about what you're doing, the more space is there for possibility, for techniques to emerge from within you in the moment. And this is common experience for healers, that they would find themselves using techniques they haven't learned anywhere, and only later on they discover that somebody has already claimed it as a technique, that it has a name and copyright and whatnot. But at some point, all of these techniques were emerged via an insight. Someone just discovered them by working and being open. So I think it would be a pity to limit oneself to a particular technique when you can be open to them all. And then again, if you feel called that that's your way, that's what you want to explore, then there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just, for me particularly, I just feel I need the unlimited possibilities for the unlimited potential to occur.
Yes, because when we're living in that possibility and knowing and understanding the truth of that, it has to come into form. Because that's the way it works. That's how it works.
It has to be first taught before it can manifest, right?
Yes, and there's a lot of not understanding in it. And that's what I love, is not knowing.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, really.
Yeah. We don't know it yet. At the same time, we can create so much and discover so much just by being open to it. It's there is a saying, I probably don't, I won't say it right, but something like understanding everything and not knowing anything, or knowing everything and not understanding anything, or something like that. You know, that there is like a paradox there, that the less you think you know, the more you actually know.
Exactly.
So that's the place I enjoy to create from as well.
I put on my Facebook page a couple of months ago, I only know what I know when I know it. Because a lot of the time I spend in not knowing.
And it's enough. Well, we can trust.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are almost at 90 minutes at this point. So unless you want to add anything, I think we would end it here.
I think it feels complete, Romana.
It feels complete.
It's been a lovely conversation.
Indeed, it was. Thank you very much for suggesting this. I really It was really helpful and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
do you have a website, or would you like to share how people can
Yes,
connect with you?
it's newperspectivescoaching.co.uk, and people can email me at Anne without the E at newperspectivescoaching.co.uk. Or I'm on Google, so people can find me really easily. Or yeah, they can Google me and find me really easy if they're interested in pursuing anything that we've talked about in this conversation. So it was
Okay,
delightful to talk to you. Thank
thank
you.
you. To you too. I'll put the links to your website and under the video as well, so people can find it there.
Great.
Okay, thanks very
Okay,
much, Anne.
Romana.
It was a delight. Have a lovely evening. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye.
Bye-bye.